Welcome. This is Tonight with Tim Modise. In the program, we interrogate the spate of cash-in-transit heists and we talk to the government about initiatives to stop violence against women and children. Good evening. Cash-in-transit heists are the most violent form of robberies, and we have seen a substantial increase of such crimes in recent months. We ask why this is the case as we probe the phenomenon and the efforts on the part of the security companies and the criminal justice system to fight these crimes. Recently published research indicates that 95% of the incidents are committed with inside information. To tell us more about this, Dr Mahlogonolo Thobane is with us, and she's here to tell us more about the research that she conducted into cash-in-transit robberies, and she's been looking at this phenomenon for quite a while. Dr. Thobane, pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Good evening, Mr. Modise.
Let's start with a brief background of the research that you conducted. It was done over what period of time and what form did it take?
Okay, so the research that I undertook was for my master's degree in criminology. So I basically started with the research proposal in 2012, and I graduated in 2014, October 2014. So it was basically about 2 years, 2.5 years that I took on the research. And so the title of the dissertation is A Criminal Career of Armed Robbers with specific reference to cash-in-transit robberies.
Right. Now, career.
Yes.
It's because the people who are behind these crimes regard this as a career. That's why you titled it the way you did.
Yes, definitely. But just to also just explain a bit what a career means in criminological terms, because people tend to think that a career means career in its literal sense, that it means that a person derives their livelihood from from crime, whatever activity that it is. Yeah. But then from a research point of view, criminal career looks at the person's pathway into crime and progress in crime. So it doesn't, I know it's basically, because it's cash-in-transit robbery, it can easily be seen as a person is making money, hence career, from cash-in-transit robberies. But my research looks at the person's pathway into crime.
What did you find, which tells me that you spoke to a lot of such professional criminals, if one may call them that, right?
Yes.
What generally are they telling you? How do they get to be involved? We'll talk about the cash-in-transit heists themselves, but let's look at the type of person who would get involved in the commission of such crimes.
Okay. So I spoke to 40 offenders, and like I explained, the title is A Criminal Career of an Armed Robber. So I didn't only speak to cash-in-transit robbers, but the majority of the participants were cash-in-transit robbers, and those were 32. So I spoke, my focus was on the violent crimes in the banking industry. So I looked at bank robbers, I looked at ATM bombers, and I looked at burglars and cash-in-transit robbers. But 32 of the 40 were cash-in-transit robbers, hence my research is mostly focused on the cash-in-transit robberies. So I just wanted to clarify that a bit.
Yeah.
You said what kind of a person would get involved in cash-in-transit robberies. So if you do a criminal career, you look at a person's, basically it does 4 things. You want to look at onset, when a person started committing crime. And then you look at frequency, the number of times the person commits crime. And you look at escalation or seriousness, if the person's crime type escalates or becomes serious. And then the last thing that you look at with criminal career, you look at desistance, or if a person stops committing crime. So firstly, with the cash-in-transit robber, what I did, I had to look at when they started committing the crime and why. And I found that a person doesn't just wake up and they become a cash-in-transit robber. It's a process. So it's a pathway, like I explained. That's what a criminal career does, criminal career research does. So then what I found with the 40 offenders that I interviewed is that they started committing crime at a very young age. They were between the ages of 11 and 15. If you look at the average of the people that I interviewed, they said they were between the ages of 11 and 15, and they started with petty crimes.
Okay, we'll come back to the pathway. Let's talk about the immediate situation, because obviously the communities and business people very concerned, and the general public are fearful of these crimes. They can happen anywhere, in the middle of highways, during the daily routine of people's lives.
Yes.
So is there any particular reason from the research that you've done and the studies that you're conducting that we see such an increase of cash in transit heists? There was a time, I think it was in 2006 or
in 2006 we also saw a rise in cash and transit
there was
robberies.
almost a daily occurrence, and recently you hear of 3-4 cases in one day. Is there any particular reason why this would be the case? Okay,
there are various reasons, and in my opinion, there are 3 reasons. First of all, the robbers are daring, and they also, because they know that they are, the crimes are very planned professionally, and they hit with precision. So they know their craft, so they are daring, and also because we've had issues with crime intelligence in South Africa. So they've basically taken advantage of the fact that, if I were to put it bluntly, that our crime intelligence has been sleeping. So then they know that crime intelligence is no match for them. So that's why we've seen such an increase. So also the other explanation is the issue of crime displacement. That we've seen that the robberies in the couple of years after 2016, it's been a bit quiet. What happens is that when I was doing my research, when Mr. Sbusiso Ndebele was still the minister of the police, he said that they had arrested a lot of cash and transit robbers and bank robbers. So what happens when they see that they're being arrested, that this crime is becoming risky, they lay low. But then that doesn't mean that they stop committing crime. Then they move to committing other types of crime.
Okay.
But as soon as they see a gap, then they come back, they go back and hit. And that could be possibly what is happening at the moment, that they saw a gap. And like I said, I explained that we have issues with crime intelligence in South Africa. Then they hit. But also the other reason, there has been a couple of cash and transit robbers who've been released from incarceration. So with cash and transit robbery, what I found out in my study is that the offenders do not get rehabilitated. So incarceration for them is just an interruption to the career, or an interruption to them committing crime. But the minute they are back in the society, then they go back to committing the robberies, or they teach other people how to commit the robberies.
So the career continues.
It continues.
And of course, they scan their environment and they see that it is conducive to them continuing with what they're used to, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I hear you talking about the crime intelligence, which tells me then that at this time at least, the criminal justice system does not have the appropriate capacity to deal with cash in transit heists. Would that be your impression?
Yeah, that is the impression, but I must also say that I'm quite impressed with our current minister, because he's really working very hard on crime intelligence. Like I said, crime intelligence was sleeping.
Yes.
So, but I feel that now they are waking up. So at the moment, they are still, they had internal issues, but they are working on those issues. And I'm impressed with the measures that he's put in place. But also, the cash and transit robbers are very professional, and they are heavily armed, and they use the latest technology. So as much as the police at the moment, they have plans in place, I think that they are not really at the same standard as the cash and transit robbers. For example, it was announced a couple of weeks ago by the minister that he's going to increase the number of boots on the ground. He's going to basically increase the number of police officers, and he's given them cars as well to react to these crimes. But the thing is, with the cash and transit robbers, with the police, if you're going to increase the number of boots, make sure that these people are also properly resourced and trained. Because we are working with highly professional offenders here. So if you are going to give your police officer, like for example, the kind of weapons, for example, that the cash and transit robbers use, they are high caliber weapons. They use AK-47s. They use R5s and they use very high caliber weaponry. So
you're talking about them being properly resourced and being careful planners. Where do they get the intelligence from for them to be able to pull off their missions?
Their mission. So when I asked, because there's also a perception that they have military background and military training. So out of the 40 that I interviewed, only one person
Had
military background.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, my research was actually done in 2014.
Yes.
And things change. And
Yeah.
that's the thing about research. You do research and then it actually...
But there's additional information.
There's additional information that comes up after
Yeah.
your information
Yeah.
has been published. But out of the research that I did, I didn't find the military training. Only one person was military
But
trained.
how do they do the preparations?
The
There are
preparations...
several things, I suppose,
It's
that happen.
so this is a quote. This is a quote that I was given, and it actually summarizes everything. The one guy told me that excellence, he said, we are repeatedly what we do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but it's a habit. So they've done it so many times, they've practiced so many times that it actually becomes a habit and they excel in it. And with the cash and transit robbers as well is that a person is not recruited because they are a cash and transit robber.
Yeah, but
You get recruited because you are good in a certain skill.
Yes.
So if, for example, you are great in hijacking, then you are going to be recruited to hijack vehicles for the crime because you have that skill. So they have different skills which actually complement their entire group.
Now, there's another discovery that you made during your research, which I'd like you to expand on a bit, tell me a bit more about. It's got to do with the role of Inyangas, the Sangomas. What do they say about that?
Okay, so we're just speaking about preparation now, and a cash and transit robbery gets planned over a number of weeks and months. It takes long. It's not something that happens. They plan today and then they hit tomorrow. So in the planning process, one of the people who were very important is a Sangoma. So they say it. This is what they say to me.
Yeah.
They say that they have to visit a Sangoma before they hit, because a Sangoma is believed to be clairvoyant and to be connected basically to the ancestors. So if you go to a Sangoma is able to see, because of the gift of clairvoyance, to see if the robbery is going to be successful or not.
And they can call it off. Or
And they can,
go ahead
yeah. There's actually in certain instances, they say that they go to a Sangoma. A Sangoma says, listen, things are going to go wrong. You're either going to get arrested, you're going to be shot, things are going to go wrong, so you have to call this off. And they actually do that. They also say they go for cleansing. So they believe that if you are not clean and you go hit, then the robbery might not be successful. So the muti also that they get from Sangomas, they believe that the mutis make them brave, makes them invincible.
I'm interested also in inside information, because I referred to that. How much of their robberies are based on whatever inside information, and where do they get this inside information?
Okay, so this is where we go back now to your question about the planning and the skill.
Yeah.
That where do they get the skill, so that now I can fully answer you. So inside information in cash and transit robberies, it was emphasized that it's very important. So they say that you have to find what is called a fingerman. So a fingerman is a person either inside the bank or in the cash and transit company who's going to point you in the right direction. So they said because it's a very, although it looks easy, it's not a very easy crime to commit. So you can't go there without any inside information. So then what a fingerman does is that they will give you an information, for example, if the person is in the works for a cash and transit company, they will give you information on the routes of the car, who's driving the car, how much money is in the car, and etc. So inside information, it's very important, but they said that there's certain instances where they hit without inside information.
Okay. Now, as we conclude, just a brief response from you. Do you think that the authorities are getting on top of the situation? Because we've got a very concerned and worried public out there.
Yes, they are, but it's actually going to take a while for them to basically fight this crime. And the major problem that we have at the moment in South Africa is that our criminal justice system is not integrated. In the criminal justice system, we've got different departments, and I feel that if, for example, the police, correctional services, and the courts could actually be integrated, it would be easier for them to be able to fight a crime of this nature, or crime actually in general, because they've got different roles, which is good, but the lines between the different departments are so thick that they're not able to work together. So that's the biggest problem that we have in South Africa. So an example that I want to make is that if a police officer has arrested a cash and transit robber, we think, oh yay, we've got a breakthrough. The person now goes into the correctional services to be rehabilitated.
Yes.
But like I explained earlier, what happens?
Then they groom the others
They
in
groom
there
the others
and start
in
to plot
there.
and probably even direct from there.
Exactly,
Right? Yeah.
even direct from inside. So
Yeah.
you can see that because the two departments are not really integrated,
Sure.
that it doesn't really stop the crime completely.
Dr. Mahlogonolo Thobane, thank you very much for talking to us and paying us a visit. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
And she's a senior lecturer at the University of South Africa's Department of Criminology and Security. Now, after the break, we take a look at the issue of violence against women and children, as well as the 100-men march that was recently held in Tshwane.